Voaden.
Thank you, Ms Jardine. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I congratulate my honourable friend for securing this important debate. From the January 2024 figures, we can see that the South West Ambulance Service consistently ranked near the bottom across all categories of ambulance response times. The mean response times nearly all below NHS targets, and the longest Cat 4 response was over 9 hours against a target of 3. Now, the geography of rural Devon, and particularly my constituency of South Devon, is not conducive to speedy ambulance response times. I would challenge anyone to drive along our hedge-lined rural lanes at speed, even with a blue light flashing. So it's no wonder that figures might be lower than national NHS targets dictate, but while ambulances spend hours waiting at clogged A&E departments, they're not out on the road responding to patients. In today's debate, I would particularly like to focus on two areas. The first is the very worrying issue of the proposed relocation of out-of-hours emergency cardiac services from Torbay Hospital to Exeter, being proposed by the Get It Right First Time programme, a programme that claims to present a data-driven evidence base to support change. Currently, patients in Torbay and South Devon face significant delays, with ambulances already struggling to meet response time targets. But with the relocation of cardiology services, ambulances will now have to travel an extra 20 miles to Exeter after collecting and stabilising a patient. And for those who live in the furthest southern part of my constituency, Dartmouth, for example, this is a significant extra travel time to add to what is already quite a long and slow journey. This extra travel time will delay critical interventions for heart attack patients. For every 30-minute delay to treatment, we know there is a 7.5% increase in mortality. In other words, that's 15 people out of every 200 who could lose their life because of an extra half-hour delay. Last week, a dozen cardiologists at Torbay Hospital met me and other local MPs and told us that they've been calling on the local ICB for a year not to go through with this change, and that, crucially, no evidence has been presented in a case that would justify this move. They said even 10 to 15 minutes can literally save a life. And we know that quicker response times also mean a better chance of full recovery for patients who do get to hospital in time to survive. Most worryingly, South West Ambulance Service didn't know anything about the proposed move, and while we're discussing ambulance services, it feels appropriate to say that this strikes me as being wholly unacceptable for a body that wants to get it right. I'd also like briefly to talk about strokes. There is growing support for treating strokes as Category 1 emergencies on par with conditions like cardiac arrest due to their time-sensitive nature, as my honourable friend has already said. Quicker responses could significantly improve long-term outcomes, reducing the risk of permanent disability or death. The first 3 hours are critical for intervention as brain tissue continues to deteriorate after that, and we know that faster treatment helps prevent this damage. However, while strokes are categorised as Category 2, evidence shows that response times often exceed the ideal time frame. The average time it takes for an ambulance to arrive and provide care for Category 2 calls is often well beyond the optimal window for effective stroke treatment. And in the South West, the mean time for an ambulance to respond to a Cat 2 call was nearly 52 minutes against an NHS target of just 18 minutes. The longest was 1 hour and 53 minutes. Changing the categorisation of stroke could ensure that ambulances prioritise stroke victims as they would a cardiac arrest or a trauma case, which could improve response times and overall care. Now, obviously, this would put yet more pressure on ambulance services. However, with all the public education campaigns about recognising stroke symptoms, which are very welcome, ambulances are simply not arriving in time to provide the necessary treatment. Ms Jardine, our paramedics and ambulance services have so much to offer, from providing life-saving urgent medical care to delivering care in the community and driving welcome innovation for the NHS. Yet, in the winter of 2023 to 24, ambulances across England collectively spent a staggering total of 112 years waiting outside hospitals to hand patients over, according to official NHS figures. It's an astonishing and dangerous waste of resources for them to be stuck for hours waiting outside crammed A&Es. And as my honourable friend has said, the crisis in our social care system goes a long way to exacerbating the bed blocking in hospitals that we're seeing, which is having a direct impact on ambulance services. The Liberal Democrats are calling on the government to publish accessible, localised reports of ambulance response times and create an emergency fund to reverse closures of community ambulance stations, particularly vital in rural areas, and cancel planned closures where needed. We need a proper plan to fund this crucial part of our NHS, rather than last-minute emergency funding each year during repeated winter crises, which don't enable local trusts and ICBs to plan effectively and efficiently.